Rarely do I find myself enamored by the glorious wall of Steam games within the store. Maybe it's my own lack of interest for most games, but one had definitely caught my eye without even having to try, mostly because of its strange name and sickeningly enticing shade of deep magenta. With such a strange name and a fascinating header, I simply had to take a closer look into it, and I was not disappointed. Hi, I'm Sin, and welcome to Horror and Chill, the lovely online web series where I talk about a horror-related topic and the vibes are chill. Tonight's topic? Milk inside of a bag of milk inside of a bag of milk. So, to preface this, I am not someone who typically plays visual novels. As much as I enjoy exploring a story, it's just typically a gameplay style I find to be boring until actual actions are happening. Though I also have very limited experience with said games, so when I get more experience with them, that opinion could very well change. That being said, this game is a visual novel I actually quite enjoyed. That, and it was also tagged with psychological horror. And you know me, I love spooky psychic things. So, Milk inside a bag of milk inside a bag of milk, or Milk 1 for short, is a game following a girl who is unnamed. The fans of this game and the developer have gone on to dub this girl Milk Girl or Milk-chan, but this is never the official name in the game for her. For simplicity, I'll just call her Girl. Our goal of the game is very plainly introduced to us. Help the girl go by milk. Pressing start, we go on to do that very thing. Starting off, the game shows us a heavily pixelated image of some trees and a streetlight. The girl speaks to herself in the first person, disclaiming that today she's pretending to be a character in a game to help herself focus better. We are introduced to the different ways to speak to the girl, most of which have this oddly hostile tone to them. After some acknowledgement, she remarks in her head that this is the 19th time and she is, quote, failing again. We end up telling the girl she has been walking with her left foot on the pavement and her right foot on the grass for a whole minute. We inform her she's taken 50 steps on the pavement and 51 in the grass. Then we say she has to undo her previous step. Remarking that this has happened before, our words to her are notably either condescending or cruel. Our options to help her undo the step being, "You've been taught the right way, haven't you? Come on," and "You're so stupid." They're both cruel in their own rights, but you can pick the condescending one to continue with the scene. The girl remarks she doesn't know and is on the edge of crying. We are passive-aggressively saying, "Ugh, here we go again," and then tell her to take a step back to get her foot back into her last footprint. The girl gets confused and starts to panic, asking if this would be the 52nd or, since it's backwards, if it's the 50th. We rephrase it and say it's the 50th step, but then she asks us to rephrase again, noting that we can't just repeat a phrase, adding that changing a phrase without changing at least one word is not how people talk. To which we call her hopeless. She notes us making it sound like it's her fault. We retort saying the store closes in an hour and she'll feel very guilty if she doesn't buy milk, which suddenly causes her to perk up and she takes a step backwards. We transition to her being in the store, approaching the first person she sees. Well, it's supposed to be a person. The creature before us is a strange pair of seemingly merged birds on a spindly body that is turned towards the viewer. His only interaction with the girl is saying, "Oh." Well, she always responds with, "Excuse me, what?" The interaction continues to go on a loop for 16 times in total. Though in that time, we say she shouldn't have done that, and he won't change his response. Then we inquire as to why he keeps saying "oh." The girl notes she knows he's trying to scare her, but she doesn't understand how he knows that she's scared of the "oh." We ask why, and she says it gives her a frightening image in her head. Then refines that statement by saying she'll show us, just that it will cost her a dozen nerve cells. To which we are presented with an odd honing black hole image, slowly getting closer and closer to the core of the image but brought back to the reality of the customer before us, to which she keeps saying, "What?" until finally she balls a fist and says "oh" back to him. This seems to put the customer in a tizzy and sends him on his way. We boldly claim she should start repeating what other people say since it seems to make them go away, and then she says that she said he crawled away, but she wasn't even looking in his direction. We simply shove her off and say we didn't hear it. She then huffs and notes that we were distracting her, and she knows her words were shown on the screen. screen. I actually quite enjoy this odd banter between the main character and the player. Though it may be cruel towards her, it gives the game a refined sense of character, building up the girl as someone with an actual personality compared to being a nothing character we throw to the side. She now stands by the racks of bags of milk, trying to describe it before we intervene and ask if she remembers why we're here. We bicker a bit more, and she remarks she wanted us to say something like, "not here." If we do, we go to the cashier. There are a lot of small moments within the game where she has interactions with the player. These interactions make her feel more human, even in this otherworldly scenario. It is also quite refreshing, as such personality is so sparse within these games. Not often is dialogue well written enough for it to feel like a conversation, as when these games do include acknowledgement of being a game, it's typically for a punchline. These interactions are so well written we actually feel like a person responding to her. Of course, this doesn't mean we are necessarily a kind person, but it gives us as the player a more refined voice in the game, one tailored for the scenario, even albeit very cruel or passive aggressive. The girl's own personality shines through in these interactions. She's very cautiously optimistic, but has a lot of anxieties when it comes to things, and easily overthinks things. She's got her own unique charm that's very tailored to her, and this charm makes her a staple and an integral part of the appeal of Milk 1 as a game. If you want a visual novel, stay for the character and gameplay. If you were like me and concerned about the game being labeled psychological horror but not meeting the quota, I'd say actually play the game. It does not disappoint. Approaching the cashier, she stutters out the question of if she could buy some milk, and the cashier... He certainly looks fun. The cashier states that she has it, and then she puts it onto the counter, asking if she could have it again, to which the cashier starts to repeat no. The girl pleads with the cashier, saying her mother would throw her out the window if she goes back without the milk. The cashier says no, and that she must give more, to which we intervene. Acting like the warped voice of reason, we tell her to pay for it, to which she chimes back, "Really, what would I do without you?" She hands the cashier the bill, and it takes him 2 days before he nodded contentedly and put it in the cash register. Just a normal Tuesday for this guy, I suppose. The girl thanks him and then says goodbye. She walks down the street, past a gas station, and in her acknowledgement of the bag of milk, she notes that it reminds her of her days in physical therapy, which leads into a ramble about the fact she's carrying a bag of milk in a bag. She then ends the thought on, "Don't think anything of it. I just love the pyramidal structure of verbal constructions." We ask as to how she's feeling, and it is honestly one of the strangest conversations that we have in the entire game. Thank you for your interest. I feel like a mile-long bar of ice cream. What is that supposed to mean? As if I tell you. But I'm really interested. Well, look, the ratio of water to milk and the volume of air occupied by me is about 30 to 1. And yeah, ice cream is not the best, unless you want to drink more than eat. Anyway, the road from the store to the gas station is a stick, and the road from the gas station to home is ice cream. During today's walk, my body has been to every part of this path. Simple math. I see. This conversation was just a strange but enjoyable interaction. One of the rare times it doesn't feel like we're being needlessly cruel to the girl, trying to understand her rather than undermine, and get a taste of just how warped her reality may be. That, or you could take it as insane ramblings, depends on how you wish to view it. We get to see her talk about how she traces over the ground itself, wondering how people can even walk something as uneven as the city plane. Her tranquil moment of wandering is interrupted by us as we call for her to watch out. She takes a step to the side, a large bear rushing past her with a wild screech, noting how its red eyes look at her with mockery. We bring her to the reality that it was a truck, not a bear. She seems surprised and wonders if there are bears with eyes on the back of their heads. We tell her how she could have died, but she shrugs it off, treating our concern as if it was a silly notion that someone would seriously want to kill an innocent girl carrying a bag of milk. We tell her the world is a cruel place, and she responds with, "I'm not in the world you're talking about." Usually, I love to rant about lines and games that really stick out to me, and it's typically because I adore how they are written or used, but this line will be more important later, so I'll hold off on it for now. We continue on with the girl, and we reach a stoplight. In her mind, she goes on about how the road seems to adjust to her in bizarre ways, that it will turn the traffic lights off helpfully, and that it will bring a cloud of rain to hide her tears. That this moment she could feel a cloud slowly gathering over top of her. I'm sad. Are you sure this is really happening? What else could it be? Has it ever occurred to you that it's all just in your head? You know what? What? Since I'm a character in a visual novel, I want to talk to whoever is reading this right now. If you say so. Listen, I'm a little embarrassed. I realize that I'm going crazy. The medications are becoming less and less effective, so ultimately, things will happen painlessly, I hope. Do you know what I'm talking about? Really? I must be nothing like the model protagonist at all, huh? To be honest, I haven't read many visual novels. Sometimes I regret it because now it costs me a lot of effort just to distinguish between letters and words. By the way, if you don't mind, I'd rather not name my diagnosis. Let at least you be the one who sees me for who I am, even though I made you up. Don't take that away from me, okay? Don't ask me for too much. How stupid does this all seem? From the very beginning, you've been following me, reading my delusional thoughts, hearing my silly conversations. I must seem crazy and weird to you. What is it like to see the world through my eyes? Ever since something happened, all I see is red. Red blood everywhere. No, don't worry about me. I got used to it a long time ago. Admittedly, I'd even forgotten what other colors look like. Come on. Those monsters from the store, they didn't scare me at all. After all, I know they won't hurt me. Sometimes I think that they themselves are afraid of me. Can you imagine that? By the way, if you want to ask me what happened, please don't. Promise? I'm serious. Of course you couldn't help but ask. In the end, I'm just talking to myself. Sooner or later I would have brought it up. So you're really that interested in what happened to me? From this conversation, the girl shows us her dad, or parts of him at the very least. She admits her family has issues, but she never thought. Her thought ends and a new one begins, saying that he jumped out the window and died, that this was her last memory and then a long gap. She informs us that today is the first day she was able to buy something at the store without a major incident, that the medicine helps, but she notes she thinks it's our merit, that she was thinking about not screwing up in front of the reader, or what we would have thought. That she doesn't know why she decided today to become a visual novel character, but that it clearly paid off. She laments about how depressed she's been since her father passed, and that the medications don't even faze her anymore. That as long as they help her keep her on her feet, she's happy. She says that today is a special day because she has us, and that she has so much to tell. That was very rude of you. Oh no, I'm not going to pressure you. I'm just advising you to go home. We get to the apartment and she notes that she always leans over the railing, like a ritual, noting that she's now blessed with silence, that when she takes the drugs, they fill her head with a myriad of unpleasant melodies that create a terrible dissonance. Returning to the line I had mentioned earlier that I restrained my thoughts on, this game paints an odd but strangely beautiful depressed story. The girl says, "I'm not in the world you're talking about," and that line is up to interpretation, something that my little mind absolutely adores. It could be taken as her simply acknowledging that the drugs warp her view of the world, causing her perceptual issues when it comes to the customer, cashier, and the truck, or it could be implying that this world is truly a fantasy world. But the most fitting idea that I can derive from it is quite simple. The girl is living in a nightmarish situation, her family torn from what little stability it had with her father's death. Something happened to her. Whatever it could have been, accident, an extreme mental break, it all leads to her having to take these drugs. The drugs, and perhaps even her own desire to escape her reality, has caused her nature of life to be altered, causing the strange monsters along with her constant shifting disposition. Yet that all fades when her medicine wears off, the world goes silent. While blissful, she's brought back to the hollow, unfeeling reality of her life. We enter her apartment and we meet Mother. This cold, empty face with a neutral smile upon its lips, eyes a hollow void within her face. She asks us if we got the milk, if the medicine worked, and then tells us to go to bed. The game lingers on her face, and then it ends. Milk Inside a Bag of Milk is a game that struck a chord with me in a way I can't explain. The background music is both fitting but also oddly unnerving, bringing us into the otherworldly feel of the game with ease. And as someone who doesn't particularly enjoy visual novels, I actually found myself quite invested in the game's story, wondering as to what will happen if it continues on, since it felt like something unpredictable to me. Typically with visual novels, you can take one look at the game and get a grasp on the characters, story, and archetypes you'll be exploring within the game, which often is a factor that deters me from them, as this can make them come off as just like any other game, with very few notable departures from the set style of the game type. So, when you see a game like Milk 1 sitting there with such an eye-catching style, it's more enticing to look into than the other visual novels. It feels new, unpredictable, and that's just one of the game's strongest appeals. It feels different, and that makes it more memorable than just being unnerving. This ending is only one of two quote-unquote endings to the game. The other results only if you are needlessly cruel to the girl. When you are cruel, she'll stare at you and say it seems that you just don't want to help her and she'll try something else next time. A way for her to both talk to us in a game over screen and an acknowledgement of our role within the game, which I'll describe in just a bit. Whether or not that is enough to consider that as a proper second ending, it does give you an achievement if you're someone who cares for those. This game was an experience. That is certainly the best way to put it. The game has a warm and yet a strange feeling to it. It's a very short game, but one that has personality, and I can totally understand why fans stuck around for the sequel. The best part of the game is actually the sort of twist as to who we play. We don't play as the girl, we play as the voice inside her head. One that is present whenever she is under the influence of her medication, making every harsh or cruel option we have in the game a reflection or manner of how she sees herself, thus truly making even when she was talking to the character just her monologuing in her own mind. Along with this, in the game over screen when she says she'll try something else, it's implying she's switching medications. This game is honestly an amazing experience, and for its price on Steam, I highly suggest you check it out for yourself, just for the fact that it needs more recognition. The game is certainly unnerving in parts, but it's nothing to be alarmed by. The unnerving nature of the game makes it so when you see things like Mother, it feels both foreboding but also fitting. With creatures like the customer or the cashier, I was actually more surprised at how human the mother was, though her human look also added to her uncanny feeling. When she appears on screen, those vacant eyes looking through you, compared to the girl's eyes which simply seem unfeeling. The contrast shows even if our protagonist's medicine wore off, her world is still far from a peaceful and calm place. I hope you enjoyed this lovely evening of horror and chill. If you have a game or horror topic you'd like for me to cover, let me know below. Remember to drink water and good night.